When it comes to the NBA draft, everyone is hoping to find the next superstar, but there are some certain things within a player that you see that would suggest they have a greater upside, and somebody who fits that category specifically is an Indiana point guard by the name of Jalen Hood-Schifino. But is this enough of an intrigue for the Raptors to select him with the 13th overall pick in this upcoming draft? Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? This is Amateur Hour Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content in videos, live streams, and shorts. If you like what you see from today's video and you want to see more draft profile content just like this one, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And since there's so many videos on the way ahead of that draft, make sure you have that notification bell turned on so you never miss out on an upload. But Jalen Hood-Schifino is an extremely intriguing prospect, and many mock drafts have him right around the area of where the Raptors are going to be selecting. He's a pick and roll specialist, and the Raptors, especially under new regime with Dark Rajakovic, are a team that are going to be running a lot of that offense. Jalen Hood-Schifino has been touted as a player who could fit really well with this Toronto Raptors team, so we're going to break down everything that you need to know about the player in today's video. We're going to go through exactly who Jalen Hood-Schifino is. I'm going to take you through his college statistics to see what was so impressive about it. Then we're going to go into his strengths, his weaknesses, and finish off with a player comparable to see exactly what the Raptors might be getting themselves into with an NBA comparable and if that would fit what the Raptors want. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video so that you can see that. But who is Jalen Hood-Schifino and what is so intriguing about him? Well, the most intriguing thing is the size. Jalen Hood-Schifino is huge. He's huge. He stands at about 6'5". Honestly, you could list him at 6'6". I know some places did that. He was listed at 6'4" ¼ without shoes at the combine. 6'5", 6'6", give or take, but he did measure a 6'10" ¼ wingspan at the draft combine as well. So almost 6'11" wingspan for a point guard is certainly intriguing, especially for a team like the Toronto Raptors and one who can handle pick and roll situations as well as Hood-Schifino. Like I said, he did play just his freshman season now with Indiana, and he's going to be 20 at the time of the draft. He's actually turning 20 on Monday, so he'll be fresh 20-year-old. That is a pretty good age to draft a player. So Jalen Hood-Schifino, big point guard, handles the ball well, runs the offense pretty well, it seems, and a lot of room to grow, a lot of upside. But what was so intriguing about those statistics in his freshman season with Indiana? Let's break them down here. Jalen Hood-Schifino is certainly a player who knows how to put the ball in the cup. He averaged 13.5 points per game this season and produced some good stats on the side. 3.7 assists is nice to see, along with 4.1 rebounds. I didn't add this here, but the turnovers are going to be a little bit of a concern. Average 2.8 turnovers per game. We'll look at that a little bit later on. And some things that could be even more concerning are the efficiency numbers here. Jalen Hood-Schifino averaged just under a 42% field goal percentage, and I can forgive a low 40s field goal percentage when it comes to a player who shoots the three ball a lot, a high volume attempt on three-pointers, and is showing good signs from shooting from range, but that doesn't really fit for Jalen Hood-Schifino. Showed some inconsistencies from three, averaging 33.3% shooting from that area, and also the two-point percentage, which I should reference more, to be honest, is quite telling. He's averaged under 45% on two-pointers this season, and we're going to find out exactly why that was the case for the players. So the intrigue, the upside is there, but from a production standpoint with Indiana, it wasn't quite what we would want it to be. But is there enough intrigue from the strengths to suggest he is still a player worth gambling on at 13th overall? Let's get right into those strengths right now. So the biggest draw for the player is 100% absolutely. He is a pick and roll expert. He is amazing out of the pick and roll. He is a wizard out of the pick and roll, whether it's getting to a spot in mid-range for shooting or whether it is finding the right passes, finding the right pocket passes. He formed a formidable duo with his big over there at Indiana. The pocket passing was exceptional and is proving to be quite ambidextrous with his passing. Cross-court passing, like I said, the pocket passing, overhead passing. a lot of different passing tools in his bag to be able to be successful out of pick and roll situations and out of dribble handoff situations. It's also nice to be able to do this and have the space to do this because of that mid-range game being absolutely killer. Absolutely killer. He will torch teams that play him in drop coverage. Purdue was the best team in the nation in the regular season, or one of the best teams in the nation in the regular season. He torched them in a game this season because they continued to play drop coverage with Zach Edey, and they could not compete with Jalen Hood-Schifino in mid-range. But going a little bit further down the list of strengths here, his size. We spoke about the size being such a big draw for the player in that position, which is good to see, and being such a mid-range assassin and pick and roll specialist, despite having such tremendous size. And going down a little bit further on the defensive end, uses his chest well to kind of keep players in front of him. He's got active hands. He's got the size. He's a really good on-ball defender, one-on-one on the perimeter. He can hold his own there. And with the size, it suggests that he can guard up sizes. Certainly, he's going to be able to guard the shooting guard position, but some intrigue in being able to guard the small forward position as well. Certainly something to also consider with Jalen Hood-Schifino. Further down, the shooting mechanics are there. There were some inconsistencies with threes, which we're about to get into, but the mechanics are there. And you know what? Did have some impressive three-point shots. 33.3% isn't exactly the end of the world with the three-point percentage. Efficiency does come with age, and the mechanics are there that would suggest that this is a player who can dial up those numbers and get better at the NBA level. To round off what we have here from the strengths category, it's that Jalen Hood-Schifino, you can just watch him. Watch some tape on the player. The reason I don't show tape here is because there could be copyright issues. I'm here for my opinion. But he is just such a smooth operator. He has such a good feel for the game. He is just an entertaining player to watch, the way he operates in mid-range, the way he operates in the pick and roll. Very, very aesthetically pleasing. Not a real big strength to his game, but from a fan wanting to watch entertaining basketball, yeah, Jalen Hood-Schifino can provide that. But there are some very alarming things also to Jalen Hood-Schifino's game. I spoke on some very specific things with the strength being really good in the pick and roll, but when he doesn't have the pick and roll, there are major concerns. First of all, the shooting consistency, as I mentioned with the weaknesses, is a big problem. Like, he hits some tough shots. He has a tendency to hit tough shots in mid-range and from three, but on catch and shoot three-pointers this season, he shot 20 of 64. Like, that is just nowhere near good enough from where it needs to be. He could be wide open on the outside and airball a three or miss completely. And it's not like they're front or short. Like, these are missing left and right. So the consistency on these three-pointers is certainly something that is alarming. And if that does not improve, like, there's going to be problems for him because he's not athletic enough to get past this. Like, he just has to be able to add in that three-point shot. Now, as I said, he should be able to do that. He has the mechanics to do that, but it is a gamble when you're taking him that he has to develop that three-point shot to really be effective at the NBA level. But we spoke about it a little bit more with the explosiveness. Before we get into that, we have to mention the handles and the turnovers. Is pretty turnover prone. Like, he's very patient and measured and calculated with the ball in his hands, which is good, but it's also bad because he can telegraph passes a little bit too easily, which can lead to turnovers. Not a very good lob passer either, which leads to turnovers. And his handle just isn't quite tight enough as of yet to be able to really take on some very active, pesky 1v1 defenders on the perimeter. That could lead to some problems as well. Turnovers are not like the end of the world when it comes to a college prospect because that can clean up quite easily, but something to consider at the moment. Now, why he needs that three-point shot like really desperately for the NBA level, I find, is that the athletic traits just aren't really there for Jalen Hood-Schifino. There are a number of things that I've listed here, but first of all, the explosiveness just isn't quite there. Definitely not an explosive player, doesn't have that quick first step, uses body feints to get to his spots, uses his dribbling to get to his spots pretty well, but ultimately, like, when he has his size advantages, he can dominate. But when he doesn't have those size advantages and, athletics come into play, he's definitely not going to take over in those settings. He's also a below-the-rim player when it comes to, like, I guess it goes a little bit hand-in-hand with explosiveness, but for a player of his size, I mean, he should be consistently finishing above the rim, but found it really difficult to score on the interior, found it really difficult to have these dunks in play. He only had 4 dunks this season. 3 of them were on wide-open fast breaks, so for a guy like 6'5" with like a 6'10" wingspan, 6'11" wingspan, you'd think he really should be having some high-flying finishes. Didn't really have that, which could limit his upside going forward as far as the athleticism goes. And maybe we saw the fact that he's a little bit of a below the rim player because there is a distinct lack of aggression for him. Maybe there's a lack of aggression on the inside because, well, he knows he's not a great finisher in those areas. Like when he gets to the rim, he can showcase, hey, he's got that ambidextrous tendency to finish with both hands, but he just isn't the most explosive guy or the most aggressive guy or the most athletic guy finishing on the inside. And with the aggression as well, he doesn't showcase to have great upside playing in transition. He's patient almost to a fault sometimes. Like he's just looking for the perfect play to execute, but in fast break situations, you want to push the pace, you want to get to the rim, but he just doesn't have really the aggression to do that. And the Raptors are a team typically who do like to get out in transition, so that will be something to monitor as well that he needs to improve. And the lack of aggression, this is a direct byproduct of that. His free throw rate is very low, 2.4 free throw attempts per game for a guy who has the ball in his hands that much, for a guy who scores this much, and a guy of this size who should be so difficult to stop. Like, he's got to get into contact way more often. And because of the lack of free throw attempts, because of the shooting consistency, the efficiency overall is a problem. This is just not the style of play that caters to the modern game. The most efficient shot in the NBA is a layup. The second most efficient shot is a free throw. The third most efficient shot is a three-point attempt. And way down near the bottom of the efficiency table is the mid-range game. He's an absolute mid-range assassin, and he's showing signs of having that three-point game. That three-point game, I think I'm knocking it a bit too much. It's still pretty good, but he really, really needs to be aggressive on the inside with that size and use it to his advantage, especially if he is in the point guard position. And he really needs to go through contact a bit more. I think it'll go hand in hand once he's getting to the rim more. He'll get fouled more, but that's a big concern when it comes to Hood-Schifino. And is it down to the athleticism? Is it down to not having a tight enough handle? Is it multiple things? Potentially, but that is a concern when it comes to the player. And that's definitely a concern that it's tough. It's tough to overlook. There's a lot of intrigue with the player. It really is tough to overlook some of these things, though, when you're considering what's going to be available at 13th overall with other players like Cason Wallace being available potentially, Bilal Coulibaly being available potentially, Jordan Hawkins, Kobe Buffkin. Like, there's going to be some good players available here. If you can't overlook that, you're probably going to go with one of the other players. But what do we see in Jalen Hood-Schifino as far as it comes to his player comparable? And I spent like an hour on this. I'm not even joking. I spent an hour trying to figure out a good player comparable for Jalen Hood-Schifino, but there wasn't really a good one. But I'll liken a player comparable as what his ceiling in the NBA could be, and this is exciting. And I think the best player comparable as far as his ceiling goes is Jamal Murray. Such a smooth operator, a mid-range killer, excellent in the pick and roll. The pocket pass is very good. The ability to pass and kick out is also extremely good. Not the most athletic guy, but just has some acrobatic finishes in his bag on the interior. This fits Jalen Hood-Schifino very, very well and compares to him very well. Now, what Jamal Murray has that separates him, that Jalen Hood-Schifino needs to develop, is that three-point game. If Jalen Hood-Schifino can develop a three-point game, you've got yourself basically another version here of Jamal Murray. That is what his ceiling can be. So based on that, the intrigue 100% is there. I think there are a lot of things that can clean up, but the lack of athleticism, it does limit his upside a little bit. And there's a lot of intrigue here for Jalen Hood-Schifino at the 13th overall pick. I can see why the Raptors want to go for him. Dark Rajakovic, the bread and butter of his coaching style is the pick and roll game. Jalen Hood-Schifino is an absolute wizard in the pick and roll and needs to work on some things. So if you get to the draft combine, if you get to your pre-draft workout and you notice he's worked on his three-point game, you notice the catch and shoot three-pointers are falling a lot more consistency. You notice that he's working on building up some muscles to finish on the interior a little bit. If there are some signs that these weaknesses are improving, this is a very, very interesting prospect and one that would be really fun to see develop in the right system. As far as my draft board, he definitely doesn't pass Cason Wallace as my number one guy for the Raptors at 13th overall. He could be in the area of Kobe Buffkin. He's not my favorite prospect. He's far from my least favorite prospect. I'd be happy to take a gamble on Hood-Schifino at 13th overall because I think another team will in that area. I see his range being anywhere. So ESPN had a mock draft with him at number 9. I can't see him going that high. If I saw him going anywhere, it'd probably be 12th or later. 12 to 18 areas where I see Jalen Hood-Schifino. So Raptors from within that range will be really interesting to see if Masai Ujiri wants to take him on. I'd certainly be interested. But what do you guys think? Do you think Jalen Hood-Schifino is a good fit and a good pick for the Raptors at 13th overall? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Here's the upcoming schedule on Amateur Hour Sports. Tons of draft profiles. I'm also going to add in a Grady Dick video in the mix as well. Tons of live streams as well. There's so much to get involved with. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Help me on the road to 15,000 subscribers. Hit that notification bell as well so you keep up to date with all of those uploads. And drop a like on this video in particular if you did enjoy. It does help out with that YouTube algorithm. It only takes you a second. And guys, with all this work, I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys again next time for another video, as tomorrow we cover Nick Smith Jr.